Good evening, students. Welcome to Maid Academy. I'm Priya Menon, teacher for 11th Standard Biology. Since this is the first lecture video that has been uploaded on the website under this course, I would like to start off by discussing the meaning of the subject biology. What exactly do you mean by biology? Okay. It is the science that study life or living matters. Okay, if I explain this definition, it's basically studying life with respect to its origin, with respect to its physiological developments, molecular interactions, chemical process, evolution, and many more. We will be learning life in various different aspects. So, as we will discuss various chapters, various topics in the subject, you will understand that we are looking into life, we are understanding how the life works with various different aspects. So biology, it is derived from a Greek word where bios meaning life and logy means study. Okay. So before we start the course, I would request the students to have an interdisciplinary approach towards the subject. Now, what do you mean by interdisciplinary approach? The thing is that, yes, I have taken biology. Obviously, the major content of the subject has to be biology. But that doesn't mean that the other subjects will never be involved while we are learning biology. Because we have to have an interdisciplinary approach where we will be taking help of other subjects to understand the concepts more clearly. Okay, we are actually broadening our understanding of a certain topic, certain experiment with the help of other subjects. We have various disciplines called as biochemistry, where chemistry is involved, biophysics, where physics is involved, biostatistics, where statistics is involved. So you cannot say that I don't like chemistry, I don't want chemistry in biology. I have not taken maths, I don't want maths in biology. No, because those other subjects are helping us to understand the concept more better. Okay, so let's get started with the first unit of 11th standard, that is diversity in living world, and the first chapter is the living world.
The living world. The name of the chapter itself tells you the content of the chapter. Like it gives an idea that what you're going to learn in this chapter. So, the living world, we'll be learning about various things about living things. Who are the members of this living world? How are they named? How are they categorized? How do we study them? All those things are going to be discussed in this chapter. So, let's get started. So let's start with answering the question, what is living? Okay? Or what is life? So as a science student, we'll be more interested in the physiological definition. It's basically life, or we can call a life as a living thing when the system shows the capacity to grow, to reproduce, to metabolize, then we can call that organism as living. Okay. So there are various characteristics which are exhibited by living things like growth, reproduction, and many more characteristics. So we'll be discussing all those characteristics in detail. And when we discuss all the things, we will also decide a defining property, a defining characteristics of a living matter. Metabolism is one of them, response to stimuli is one of them. So let's get started and let's discuss that which one will be the defining property of a living thing.
Okay, so as we saw in the presentation, we did come across many characteristics of a living thing. Now, these are the characteristics to check whether that organism or whether substance we have discovered is living or non-living. So now what we have to do is we have to decide a defining property. Okay, so let's take one by one. The first characteristic of living matter was taken: growth. Okay, what is growth? It is increase in size, number, or mass. Yes, when all these three parameters are increasing, growth happens. Like when a child or when a baby is growing into an adult, all these things are happening. It's increasing in size, there is increase in number of cells, the mass is increasing. So we call it as growth. Now, if you must have observed, I had included a mountain peak in the presentation. So the question must have been there, thinking why there is a mountain in the slide of growth. Do mountains grow? Yes, mountains grow. Okay, it is because that growth is because of accumulation of substances on the external surface. On the external surface. The growth is happening externally. Okay, so we can see it is increasing in size. So we can say the mountains is growing. We are actually saying a non-living thing is growing. Okay, but we have our justification that even the living things grow internally as well. Okay, the growth is happening internally as well, but still there is an exception that, like growth of mountain, growth of boulders, we cannot consider growth as the defining property of living things. Okay, it's because of these exceptions. The some non-living things we consider it as growing because of accumulation of materials on the outer surface. Okay, so now we know why growth is not considered as the defining property. Now the second characteristic which we discussed was reproduction. Okay, reproduction. It is the biological process where an individual produces offspring similar to themselves. Okay, so reproduction, we know it is one of the major life processes. In lower classes we have learned many life processes: nutrition, then this reproduction, excretion, and many more. So reproduction is one of the major life processes. Obviously this is a characteristic of a living thing. But again, the question what we are doing, we are seeing which one is the defining property. Now there are certain organisms or animals who cannot reproduce. Okay, one of the major example is mule. Okay, then there are a group of bees called as worker bees. Okay, then even in human beings there are some people who cannot reproduce. Okay, now such human beings, such animals who cannot reproduce are called as sterile. Okay, it could be because of their damage in their reproductive system or incapability of producing gametes. Okay, because of various reasons they are not able to reproduce. Even worker bees are categories of honey bees who cannot reproduce. Mule cannot reproduce. So just because they don't have one characteristic of a living thing, can we call these people as non-living? No, we cannot, because they exhibit other characteristics of a living thing. So that is why we cannot consider reproduction as the defining property. Okay. So let's see the third characteristic which we saw in the presentation. It was metabolism. Yep. So what is metabolism? It is sum of total chemical reactions that is taking place inside a living body, inside a living matter. There is a lot of reaction that certain substances are getting broken down to form certain products. Some substances are coming and getting formed, getting fused and formed for creation of some other products. So there is continuous formation or breaking down of substances, and all those reactions together is called as metabolism. If I can, simplify the definition, metabolism is sum of catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is breaking down of substance. Anabolism is formation of substance. Okay. So all the living thing shows metabolism. Okay. Even there are certain reactions that is seen, or we do it in laboratory conditions, in glasswares. Okay. Such reactions are called as in vitro reaction, but still we call those reactions as living reaction. It's not that if some such reaction is taking place inside the glassware, I'm calling that glassware as living, that the glassware has become living, life has come to it. No, I'll say there is a living reaction that is taking place inside the glassware. Such type of reaction is called as in vitro reaction when it is done outside the body, inside glasswares. Okay. So if you see, there are no exceptions in case of this characteristic. This has to be there in all living things. This is, now we can consider metabolism as defining property of living. Defining property of living. Okay. So yes, so far we have got one characteristic as defining, that is metabolism. And the other one which we saw was response to stimuli or consciousness. Okay. A characteristic of a living thing. Okay. Response to stimuli, like responding to some external changes, environmental changes, sudden. Like if I'm teaching now, someone suddenly just rush and run towards me, I'll get shocked, I'll get surprised. That is my response to sudden change. I'm a living thing, I'll show response. But if I come and try to surprise my camera, surprise my laptop, will it flinch? No, it won't, because it's a non-living thing. They don't have consciousness. They will never respond to stimuli. Okay. So now, is there any exception in case of this characteristics? Response to stimuli? No. So one more characteristic we got as the defining property, that is response to stimuli. But now there is a question that is always asked regarding whenever this characteristic is decided about coma patient, whether they can be considered as living or non-living. Okay. So unfortunately, what happens to a coma patient is, the condition that happens there is brain dead.